get cracking. If anyone has any questions at any time, just please shout out. Don't be polite. You're welcome to interrupt me at any moment. The lecture won't go on for a particularly long time. As soon as the lecture is finished, I will upload an individual section for each of you on Padlet, and I will put the address to that Padlet in the group chat. So when we have critique, you have to upload to the Padlet. I'll share my screen. It's a little bit confusing initially, but hopefully it will make sense after a few minutes, I hope. All right, let's take a little look at this initial introductory lecture. So the online term revolves around a lecture every other week. This time I've been somewhat organized. Hold on, let me just find the slides. Here we go. Okay. I've planned ahead. So our first lecture next term will be on the aggregate. I've actually written it down. Okay. So first lecture next term will be on the aggregate note. That will be a familiar idea to some of you. For the rest of you, just have to wait and see. We'll talk about the key and sort of the idea of kind of value scale within paintings that we look at. We'll talk about transcribing in general and how that relates to our learning process, and how looking at art and having a kind of understanding of the work you're looking at can really help propel you as painters. And then we'll also look specifically at color in relation to sort of drawing structure and form. So really learning how to sort of apply the ideas that we learn in the initial phase of the term, which is, really learning to mix and to see, broad scales of value in relation to a whole composition, then more specifically how to relate that to specific drawing. So introductory session, I always sort of end up falling on these Degas and Ang quotes for these intro sessions, which is and they're a range of similar quotes, but it's the masters must be copied over and over again, and it's only after proving yourself a good copyist that you should reasonably be permitted to draw a radish from nature. Now, I think Degas being, as with many of his quotes and paintings, being somewhat facetious, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. We've sort of, within the North London group, we've sort of seen transcribing, copying paintings to be something of a rite of passage to really help you to find a sort of ally within looking in and paintings of the past, to sort of help you see nature itself. There's been a very familiar trajectory amongst our students. We've been doing these courses, online courses, for quite a few years now, 2 or 3 years. And I know the general theme is that as people's transcriptions get better, which, and it's very difficult to get one's transcriptions to a high level. For all the beautiful works you'll see today, there are countless failed attempts, and many of the students in the class would probably happily give you, account and testimonies that how challenging it is to really, do well in these transcriptions. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of humility, and you've got to be really humble, because we're looking at it as sort of incredible facility when we take in these admire these works from art history. But when people break through, it tends to have a knock-on effect on their work in general. So these are just an example of what I'd like us to do for today's class, and even for my more advanced students, I'd encourage you for the early stage of next term to bring thumbnails back into the mix, and I will explain why. But these are Sam, who's I'm really grateful is with us today. These are some of her thumbnail transcriptions that she made over the course of last term. She's been fighting the good fight in thumbnails and very close to breaking through into something magnificent. Even though these are strong, very strong thumbnails, we really do push to within the North London group to take these as far as we possibly can. And believe it or not, I would imagine that this sheet of linen is about A4 size, Sam, or possibly even smaller.
Yeah, it's like 30 by 40 centimeters.
Yeah. So these thumbnail transcriptions we're doing are small. They're fit within the screen of an iPhone, for example. They're fit in the palm of your hand. And they're just a sort of a beautiful opportunity to sort of summarize, um, the action and geometry and simple kind of tonal um, interpretation of these beautiful works from Vermeer, Titian, Baltus, uh, Courbet. Is that also a Titian?
I think that one was Veronese.
Veronese. Okay, another Venetian. Yeah,
Yeah.
these are works that often are enormous, and the artists have spent a considerable amount of time on. But these were painted in the period of 90 minutes to 3 hours. So we're really looking to sort of seize the experience of these paintings and really specifically interact with the beautiful color scale and tonal scale within them. And these are just some examples. I just wanted to give you sort of a kind of very quick greatest hit, some of the beautiful transcriptions that artists have made within these groups over the past few years. This is Florentina. She made a beautiful transcription after Corot. So in one of our first online classes, actually, maybe even the first online class, she might have made this transcription. It's a beauty. It's a Corot painting that was painted in Italy. This is Anya, who I don't believe can join us today, but Anya's been in the group from day one. It's another beautiful small transcription after Corot. We look at Corot quite a lot when doing these transcriptions. He's a painter who lends very, very well to transcribing. When I first was introduced to this idea, we were told to transcribe 5 Corot paintings and spend 90 minutes in each and use a big paintbrush. And it was a wonderful, wonderful lesson. Agatha, after Thomas Eakins. Beautiful, very imaginative transcription. It's got so much space for such a small work. So within these transcriptions, we're really looking to sort of, I spoke initially when I started this lecture about our lecture series next term, which will start with the aggregate note, which is a sense of being able to sort of to look past the sort of details and intricacies of form and look for large sort of passages of and very specific passages of paint that describe and can hold atmosphere, right? And describe the action of light. And you can really sense this kind of push towards the aggregate note within this transcription. It's very, very eloquent and beautifully stated. You often see when people first start doing these transcriptions, they make about 4 or 5 different notes for a sky or for water. Just look how she's really working with 1, 2 huge notes and very, slightly kind of fluctuating variety into those notes. It's very, very subtle, but the key rests on the solidity of these broad notes of color. If you know this painting, it's a very clever reinterpretation of it. It's a lovely work, and also, very carefully drawn, very concise geometry, lovely edge quality. Yeah, it's a knockout. This is Meta, and it's after Baltus painting. Very solid transcription. Again, the sense of the aggregate note, right? Really sort of, summarizing all the variety within the figure into sort of one broad statement, and then, fluctuating, small variety of notes within it, breaking it up with local color, little indicating, slight differences in structure, right, within that kind of broadness and of a broad note in relation, to a broad note of the spot in the background behind her. It's really difficult to build up that sort of restraint needed to find that broad and specific tension within the notes, but it makes all the difference. Billy Munden, after Pontormo. Very poetic transcription. Michel Malix, after Chardin. Anya, after Chardin also. It's a big breakthrough painting for Anya. Really made a huge difference to her process. Abby, who's with us today, Abigail Burton, after also Chardin. Yet Chardin, Titian, Corot, those are artists we look at a lot during the course of this term. So if you're sort of wondering, if you want to paint today, if you're wondering who to look for, I'd say, putting Titian into the National Gallery search bar, you'll find some really high quality images of Titian to work from. For Corot, the Louvre website has a wonderful collection of high res landscapes of his. And Chardin, they have got a lot of beautiful Chardins as well, as does the National Gallery. Beautiful transcription. It's very, very lively, very, very energetic. This is Maruzia Ruzanita. She's a sculptress predominantly, but this is a detail of a Rubens. So, she's starting to get a little bit more into the specificity of drawing here. Hopefully that's something we'll get into a little later into next term, trying to adapt this sort of broad way of looking, the really broad handling of spots and combine that with, structure, specificity of form, and sort of understand how we can use that broadness to help us sculpt, essentially. It's another Abby transcription after, it's Rubens, right, Abby?
Yes, Rubens, yeah.
Yeah. You can really, when you begin to get the knack for seeing, in broad spots, you can really tackle extremely intricate subject matter. And it's beautiful to sort of see it reinterpreted with such simplicity. There's a kind of joy, I think, painters take when seeing abstraction like this. It's very pleasing because we're so perplexed by details and intricacy and just the sort of grandeur of these paintings. It's nice to kind of make them bite-sized and to understand that they're beyond anything. Paintings are sort of set of ideas and understanding, and it's lovely to be able to sort of hold that understanding in the palm of your hand. I was talking to Stephanie last night about that. She was doing some beautiful sketches in her book, and I was saying, it's wonderful to sort of see these ideas on that scale, on a smaller scale, because we do a lot of big drawing in the North London group in our Tuesday night sessions. We work on A2 predominantly in charcoal. So one of the painters in the group who's really sort of taken the idea of these transcriptions and explored them to a very far degree and deserves a lot of credit for doing so is Vaibhav, our painter, our man over there in India. He's been working incredibly hard and he's taken us sort of on this wonderful journey across art history and reinterpreting these beautiful works by many, many different artists. And, these transcriptions, some of them are from earlier on in his process and some of them are later. And as the later ones have just become more and more playful, more and more kind of mysterious, like including this is quite a recent transcription after Velasquez. And, like many of the painters in this group, transcription was really difficult for Vaibhav, and just with myself and anybody who really attempts to make these thumbnails, there's definitely a period of struggle and failure, and that sort of, it's continuous but becomes more enjoyable. And it's wonderful to sort of see the creativity and expression that's come out of this process from Vaibhav. So we're just going to go on a little journey across some of Vaibhav's greatest hits and some of his best transcriptions of late. Yeah, so this is a beautiful reinterpretation of the Velasquez that lives in the Prado. I think it's a Bacchus, right? The Bacchanals or something along those lines. Yeah, very dark. So the next lecture we'll talk about next time will be key, right? We'll talk about painters like, for example, Caravaggio, deals with paintings that sort of very cinematic, high level of contrast. Then we'll talk about painters, for example, like Morandi, who paints an incredibly close key, and painters like Velasquez, or Chardin, who really sort of, you feel like their paintings kind of encapsulate the sort of atmosphere of looking, of reality itself. Their paintings feel like air. And Vaibhav has found himself, his own personal voice has kind of gravitated towards these very closely keyed, sort of dark, deeply keyed paintings. That low contrast, quite dark, and it's wonderful. I think everyone has a certain inclination towards a certain personal voice and a way of sort of interpreting these ideas. I think it's very important not to be sort of locked within that voice, to be able to express, to be able to paint a sort of sunny day just as beautifully as you can paint a moody English winter. But these transcriptions say something about Vaibhav's own kind of personal inclinations and his own voice. And let's just have a little look. I've been speaking far too much. After Tintoretto. Very imaginative and loose, beautiful interpretation of Ang. After Mantegna. Very inspiring transcriptions, these really. After Courbet. After Corot. After Mantegna. I think for those in the group, looking at these transcriptions, I think just keep an eye on them. I think what you're seeing is sort of a voice emerging, and more, in Vaibhav's own kind of personal compositions. I think you'll really see how this interaction he had with these paintings and the way he's reinterpreted them really heavily influence his paintings going forward next term, and beginning to already do so. Voice is a very kind of precious and individual quality that that really comes after a lot of hard work and exploration. And these are beautiful examples. This is after Fantin Latour. The previous one was after Mantegna. After Caravaggio, very abstract. Quick one, Vaibhav, I'd say. Was it how long did you spend on this? Do you remember?
I think 20 minutes.
Yeah. So we really, with these transcriptions and with all the drawing and all the work we do as premier coup, they're one-shot paintings. So we really push, really push to work very energetically and to sort of tap into our reactive selves. I often I think when we draw, we tend to overthink. We can be sort of subconsciously quite scared and nervous, and we want to break through that. We want to feel confidence, and we want to interact with these paintings, whether it be transcription or whether we're working in the landscape from the model or from still life, with as much kind of fearlessness and reactivity as we possibly can. We want to sort of assume the motif and get the ball rolling quickly. And these are a good example of those. I'm so sorry, but I always forget the name of this incredible Spanish still life painter. Do you remember, Vaibhav?
No, same. Like I always
That's
forget
really
as well.
embarrassing. I'm going to, before the end of this session, I will give him the credit that's due. But it's after that, after a wonderful Spanish still life painter. It begins with a C. That's all I know. L. Okay, I won't mess it up. I'll get it right for you guys before the end of the session.
Turbarão.
Pardon?
Turbarão.
No.
No.
I will remember it. He's wonderful painter. The beautiful interpretation of it too. Very, very strange key. It's very much a reinterpretation of the painting. It's not at all a copy at all. But it's a paint. It's a copy it's a transcription that understands the essence. What we're looking for is not a literal copy of these paintings. We're trying to get the essence of them. We're trying to put, we're trying to think like these painters. We're not just using our eyes and sort of copying things. We're not at all photorealists. We're trying to think very abstract.
Josh, can I
Yeah.
ask a Vaibhav a question here?
Definitely, yeah.
So before you start a transcription, what
what were you thinking? Like, I think exactly what I felt when I saw your transcription is that you are not copying. Like there is a distillation or like you know the essence. So I'm very curious how you think about these things.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, when I start, I try to like internalize the painting, like try to understand what is happening, like many things like source of light, and then I squint a lot, trying to bring everything together and spend some time looking at it. And once there is a click, it's like it just happens, and then I switch and go to into a very reactive mode and try to fill the canvas. And once I have something convincing, I try to key a area, and from there I try to spread everything. I mean, that's how I process it
yeah,
most of it.
I think that when we become reactive, it tends to be when we get those first sort of spots going, right? And then I think there's a kind of momentum that comes with sort of finding the connection coloristically between sort of what we're looking at and our intuition. It's somehow that kind of initial success that I feel like intuition can take over in a very beautiful way, and you really feel it in these paintings. To be able to react to Caravaggio, as quickly as you have, there's this kind of sense that you yeah it's difficult to put into words. A sort of non-verbal quality to it, really. Is that good, Stephanie? Did vibe help you?
Yeah, thank you.
Want to flesh it
Yeah.
out? Another question to follow up, or are you good?
No, I think it's good. It's just really wonderful to look at his transcription.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Very inspiring.
Really beautiful. Very, yeah, indeed. Anyone else want to ask any questions at this point? Okay, we'll keep going. Vermeer. I think what you find with these transcriptions is, there's, and especially what I found after teaching them for so long, is that you begin to sort of internalize, like you memorize these paintings. It's almost like, you listen to a song so many times and you can kind of recall very, very vividly passages of form. And when I look at this Vermeer, I always think about the kind of strange geometry that he has, within this portion of fabric there. And, you've really beautifully encapsulated it, in a very kind of reactive, sort of forceful way. And it's funny. It's also one of the, when I think about this painting, I can kind of recall this particular passage in my mind. You can retranscribe paintings over and over. You think about Ang, who was the sort of possibly the greatest draftsman that ever lived. His last painting, his last work was a transcription after Giotto. So, doesn't we, even though, our work might develop and our, we become very strong on our own sort of personal path of expression, we can always go back to these, beautiful works and revisit them. And we always want to be looking at paintings, really. And, there's so many people within our group. Abigail and Stephanie were at the National Gallery last night and then came to life drawing after. It's like there's a wonderful kind of momentum and passion within this group of painters. And there's some really wonderful examples of that kind of passion and discipline and that continual desire to engage and re-engage with arts. Abigail did a transcription from Velasquez last night. I think she's done it, since she's been part of the group. I think she's transcribed that particular painting 2 or 3 times, and very successfully so. And the one from Titian, I think 4 times even. So, there's always something to learn, from these works. Transcription, we're constantly learning and understanding this language, pictorial language, much better. The more and more we revisit these works. After, I think it's a Giorgione or a Titian. I think it was a Giorgione.
It's a Titian.
It's a Titian, yeah. I think it was at one point. They said it was a Giorgione, and then they said it was a Titian. It kind of looks like a Giorgione to me. Maybe it was a collaborative work, but yeah, beautiful interpretation of it anyway. Chardin. very, very, for those that have been working with me for a while, look at the sort of edge variety, how he's, really, when we talk about sort of the motif, the heart of a painting, right? How, he's really sort of selecting the sort of heart of this painting, drawing the eye, the attention to the eye, to this particular passage of form, sort of bouncing our eye from sort of this passage to this little passage here, and allowing sort of the eye to somewhat fall off, but also maintaining the silhouette in a beautiful way. Yeah, it's very playful, very, very playful, this particular transcription. After Courbet, Chardin again, de Piombo, it's a nice one, really nice one. So later lecture we'll be talking about sort of how to apply, the sort of, hopefully this, we'll learn a lot of beautiful things about mixing color and the kind of complexity of color and color that relates to tone, but also how to apply that to a lot of the work that we've done in drawing, and you can see the wonderful kind of transition from out of that shadow, sort of a middling plane transitioning into the light. It's a wonderful example of how to, combine color and form, and the, look, when we copy these paintings, so much of the abstraction has been done for us. So it just gives us there's so many clues within these works, right? There's so many clues within these works, and hopefully, we can use them as a platform to, to see nature through paintings. I think that's really the knack here, to sort of have a filter of painting between you and your motif. So it's almost, whenever you sort of set your easel up, I think this sort of relates to what you're saying, Stephanie. It's that we're not just setting our easel up in front of a subject matter, right? We are, we're setting our, and I think you are doing this consciously yourself all the time. And we do it whether we know it or not. We're seeing, painting through the filter of other paintings, and sometimes it's sort of, we're not conscious of it, and when we're not always aware initially about what we like and what we love in painting and what excites us, and but your drawing process will help you kind of understand your pictorial desires much more deeply, and it's a wonderful journey. After, is it Titian, I believe? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Titian.
Yeah, wild interpretation of a Titian. Very playful, very broad. I mean, like, some of these paintings are so incredibly complex, and sometimes we've just got to be like, we just got to throw everything at it, right? Just to sort of get our foot in the door, because otherwise, if we dare to sort of think about what we're doing, we just stop in our tracks, because they really are, they really are daunting. Yeah, it's a very playful interpretation of Titian. Some nice, nice passages as well, that be helpful for your own sort of landscape painting process. Sometimes we need to like look back at these works that we've done, sort of, they can help us understand how to sort of propel our own paintings forward. There are clues for ourselves within our own transcriptions, within our own sketchbooks, within our own work. We're learning about ourselves as well as these painters. Poussin?
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. Poussin's another one we spend a lot of time looking at over the course of this term. Lends to transcription excellently. Veronese, I'm going to guess?
No, Delacroix, Death of Sir, I don't know the name.
Delacroix.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Vaibhav, do your transcriptions ever start a little bit like this, and then you structure them a little bit more? Was this a bit more of an experimental transcription?
This was like, I heavily relied on my squint.
Yeah.
Like whatever I'm seeing, I'm like, without thinking, I'm just putting everything and see what is happening.
Right.
More like on the reactive side.
Yeah. So we talk a lot over the course of this term, sort of this idea of indirect looking. So almost sort of using your eyes to abstract an image to your memory, a more indirect stare. And so I think transcription can really help us sort of tap into our visual memory and our ability to internalize compositions, to internalize paintings and passages of painting. And I think that's somewhat what sort of Vaibhav's describing, and you can sort of see it here. It doesn't feel like it's a sort of slavish copy. It feels like something that belongs to a visual impression, a memory. It's left a sort of mark upon him, and that's what this process of transcribing does. You'll walk around with this sort of paintings in your sort of visual data bank, and you'll be able to recall on them, and they become your friends, your allies. After Delacroix, again, Vaibhav's transcribed this particular Delacroix at least how many times? At least twice, but maybe more.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times, yeah. How many of those did you scrape?
Uh, yeah, I think I did a bigger one than this. I have
Yeah.
to scrape and
Yeah.
throw it out.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So, the path to success often in painting, and I think in anything, the older and older I get, is failure. We make our mistakes, we learn from our mistakes, we push forward. It's as much as I'm showing a lot of wonderful, successful transcriptions here, but any of these students will tell you that behind them there were, there was a lot of scraping, and that's just part of the process. We're not scraping for the sake of it. We're scraping because we demand more of ourselves, and we have a wonderful group of students around us who are setting beautiful examples of how it should be done. We've got to keep our standards very high, and even then we're unfortunately fall short, because painting is really an impossible task. Another one after Tintoretto, and then the same transcription as before, in gouache?
No,
Ink and charcoal?
ink. Yeah, charcoal powder.
Ink and charcoal powder, yeah. And Vaibhav exhibited this in our summer show. We have an annual student exhibition at the Regent's Park Gallery in Primrose Hill. We're having another one this summer, hopefully. And this work was exhibited in that show. I think, as well as it was in the Hampstead Art Society Works on Paper show, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it for today's lecture. I will give you guys all the link to this particular slideshow, because I incorporated a lot of other beautiful transcriptions that our students have done over the years. A lot of them relate to drawings. We talked a lot about drawing last term. I'm just going to go through them very quickly so you can kind of get a vague scope of some of the beautiful work that's been done over the period of these courses. I just, again, we're showing a lot of the success, a lot of the beauty, but please don't think that people are hitting results like this every time. There are many weeks, especially initially, where a lot of these painters have struggled. They all will tell you, if you want to ask them, it's a hard work, and the crits, the crits are thorough and tough and honest and never personal, but we're just sort of pushing towards, to try and get strong results. And, I think, fortunately, we've managed to do that. Does anybody have any questions at this point before we get working? I will just say, in terms of procedure, you want to set yourself up with, if you don't have your paints today, that's fine. You can just do this in pencil or charcoal. But you want to set yourself up with a little bit of linen and just find a subject matter. I'd recommend looking on the National Gallery website or the Louvre website, because you'll get very, very high res images, and just go for a painting with the remaining hour and 10-20 minutes that we have left. I will look at it in about 30-40 minutes and just give you some tips. I can look at any time. I'll be by my computer for all of this session, but we tend to do a critique every 30 minutes or so. So I will send you guys the link to the Padlet in the group chat, and I'll also put my mobile number in case anybody wants to send me anything over WhatsApp, just to make sure that they've picked something good to work from. My recommendations would be Corot lends really, really excellently to transcription. Chardin, Titian, Poussin, Velasquez, they'd be wonderful examples. And yeah, and if anybody at this point, if anyone has any questions, please just, or anything they'd like to say, now's the time. Especially the new guys. No? Okay, so get cracking. Yeah, Eve, go for it. Yeah.
Hi. Well, what palette would you recommend, as in colours?
Yeah, so I will read you my palette list. We have an abbreviated version, but the hold on. Sorry, the longer version is pretty complete. So on my palette is lead white, Kremnitz white, raw umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, Windsor violet, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, emerald green, alizarin crimson, cad green light, phthalo green lake, cadmium red light, cadmium orange, phthalo blue, cadmium yellow, Indian yellow, and cadmium lemon yellow. And I can copy that very long list and I'll put it in the I'll put it in. I'll send it to you specifically. And we have a restricted. We work with a lot. We work with a lot. Yeah. But you don't need quite that many. I did give a sort of more restricted version. But for today, just work with what you've got, and try. My advice would be to lean, and even if you have that many colors, is always to lean towards the tonality of these paintings. So prioritize the drawing, the values, and the temperature, over trying to chase kind of specific hue so much. A lot of the work that we've done earlier in this year as a group has been sort of building a drawing foundation, and really trying to sort of understand these paintings in terms of tonality and values. And that's what would be my recommendation for you. So even if you could see with some of the Vibabs paintings, they're very tonal, right? So you don't need necessarily all those colors. However, let's say you're transcribing a Corot, and you're really looking to get the specificity of that atmosphere. You need a wide range of colors to really capture, the sunlight, the specific qualities of specific times of day, for example. Yeah. But work today, I'm not expecting you to run to the art shop. Just work with what you've got, and that's the same with all of you. And even if you want to draw, it's fine. And it's an introductory session. I'm not going to give anybody a tough time. It's just a sense for us to get to know each other, have a little look at some of the beautiful work that people have done within the group, and just to get an insight into how we do these online sessions.
Thank you. Could you put that list somewhere?
Yeah, I'll put it somewhere. I'll put it in. Right.
Thank you.
In the Zoom chat, I just email it to myself quickly. Yeah. Patricia, Joe, Gokche, any other questions? No. Okay.
No questions.
All right. Awesome. So just get working. I will speak to everyone at like 11:20, I'd say. And I'm just gonna send everybody the link to our Padlet in a second, so you can get a sense of how we critique on the online classes. Hopefully that would be a helpful insight into our online immersive for you guys.
Josh, I've got another question.
Yeah, please, as many as possible, please.
I've got a strip of canvas here. So if you're just wanting a little tiny bit, a phone size, do I cut it and then tape?
No, you can make a little island of tape. I think is a good thing to do. You can sort of tape out. Yeah, so be conscious to, or you can just draw a little rectangle. Be conscious to work with the same format of the work that you decide to transcribe from. So initially, the initial mistakes people always make is they're painting like a beautifully sort of elongated rectangle, and they end up fitting everything into a square. Try and stick to the original design of these compositions. Design is everything when we're transcribing. The other thing is that people tend to make their color, an eye for saturated color tends to dominate their tonal kind of vision. We want to prioritize values. You've got to see value before you can see color effectively in terms of tonal painting. The other thing is that people break down the spots too much. So we're looking to simplify these paintings into fewer spots, fewer notes as possible. It's like less is more by far. when it comes to these transcriptions. Less is more. So hopefully that's a bit of helpful guidance. No worries. And guys, those of you who've been, especially Abby and Vibav, been transcribing for a while now, I think that I would like you guys to focus. And if you want to get this down before next term, so you just get ahead of the curve, right? I really want you to focus on painting in completely different keys, right? So think about transcribing after someone like Gwen John, and then, going and then transcribing a sort of Sunny Day by Corot. Especially you, Vibav, because you're painting so beautifully. We're a little bit kind of caught up in a certain type of key, those closely keyed paintings, which is I have no issue with. In fact, I love it, but I don't want you to feel restricted with it in that sense. I want you to feel like you've got range, and especially if you're painting in the landscape, that you are able to hit those sort of very vibrant notes and to hit that, hit high contrast, and that is just like anything. It's always comes down to tonality, right? And seeing color in relation to tone, and it will also, a wide sort of understand the kind of range of saturation. How within a painting, sort of, often in the landscape, the things that are closer to our eye are kind of more richly colored and saturated. And as things recede into the distance, you lose a lot of that potency of color. And it's understanding that kind of broad scale of chroma within a composition, if that makes any sense to us. Something that I think you guys would really benefit from looking at.
Yeah, actually, on that topic, Josh, I was getting into quite a lot of like kind of early Renaissance things. I was kind of thinking of maybe doing like Sasetta today.
Oh, well, that's a slightly different topic. I mean, I think transcribing Sasetta is a wonderful thing to do. I think that it's more to do with drawing and geometry. I mean, and also it is to do with color, but it's sort of not so much. I mean, it's tonal. It is tonal, but it's kind of the purity of color and the sort of interplay between color and design. I mean, I think transcribing the Sienese painters is an absolutely wonderful thing to do, and you should do it, and you'll learn a lot from it. I mean, a lot of painters I know, their work grew tremendously from looking at the Sienese painters. It's a little bit different to what I was getting at, in the sense that, because they're less tonal painters. But I think to explore them would be a wonderful thing. But what I'm getting at is to sort of understand the kind of scope of voice and language within painting, particularly within landscape painting, and just to feel that, to properly understand your voice, I think you have to sort of be able to hear others speak, and to understand, the difference, I suppose, between like Corot's use of color, and I think Morandi's a great example. They're kind of desaturated color palette that really just is, sort of an extension of drawing and temperature. And I think, when you can compare that to sort of the richness of color you get in Corot, that really sort of can beautifully reflect the time of day and quality of light you have, so specifically that you feel that you're there. So it's a little bit of a different idea, but by all means, I say transcribing after the Sienese would be a very exciting thing to do. Probably.
Yeah, I think I kind of like this, like you say, this idea of like purity of color versus maybe kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, play with that. But just what I will say about transcribing the Sienese is, and just you should be fine with this, is but the linear qualities of those work are mind blowing. So much of it rests on such a deep understanding of line. So just be aware of that. But you can interpret them in a very sort of brushy way. It doesn't mean that you're sort of restricted to that. There's all kinds of ways to interact with those works. But I would just say look for the wonderful linear abstraction in those works. It's sublime. Yeah, nice one.
Thanks, Josh.
Anyone else? Okay, I will do everything I said I'd do. Firstly, I'm going to send you guys that palette list, and then I will send you the Padlet link. So no worries, Vibav. Lovely. Thanks for joining us, and get some painting in. Yeah. So that's it for now. But yeah, about 11:20, 11:30, we'll have a little look at everybody's work and see what you've all been getting up to. I will mute myself now and turn my video off. but I'll be here the whole time. So if you need me, just shout, and don't be shy, guys. Like, especially the three of you that were new and joining us, the four of you that are new and joining us today. Like, anything I can help you with, just please ask. There's no silly questions at all. We'll just don't be shy, basically. All right. Good luck. So someone's just uploaded. Who's that? Sorry, just gonna grab a water. Okay. Who uploaded just now? Is that you, Gretel?
Okay, I uploaded.
Oh, you uploaded. Okay. Awesome. Have a look. Sorry, give me just a second, please. Okay. Ali, did I put up this? I'm not sure I put a section up for you. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, one thing I should add, guys, if you'd be kind enough to upload your original subject, so the image that you're working from alongside the transcription. I should have made that clear if possible. So if you could upload the Titian, and I'm not sure you're working for Gotche, but if you could upload those two together, that'd be perfect.
My picture is from Giovanni Girolamo Savolto, Mary Magdalene.
Okay, if you have a screenshot or an image of it, if you could upload it just above, if possible.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will have a screenshot.
Thank you. Other painters from the group, if try and upload quickly, please, so I can set some nice examples for everybody. All right, Joe, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, so nice start. I think first thing first, so when it comes to these thumbnail transcriptions, that we want to try and key things in, right? So we want to try and prioritize kind of keying in the sort of truthful passages of spots, notes of color before we spread things around. So our main goal initially is just to sort of, let's say like you've done for the sort of portrait. I think within this kind of the size of what you've done, it would be a little bit of a smaller shape initially. But let's say, let's just focus on the passage of, these three spots here. We want to try and focus on really, really tuning in, just three notes before we can sort of spread around the color and start to develop it. We can start with a few sort of initial bits of drawing and plot things out, but until we can key in the painting and kind of sort of activate the color and really connect to the color, if we continue to spread notes, we'll sort of be spreading kind of a false set of relationships. Like all of the color you can see in this painting sort of is interrelatory. So, you know, every single note relates to every other note. And right now, I think that you could go a little bit further to sort of tune this passage into something a little bit more specific, right? So initially, I'd say that let's just look at the sky, for example. I think your sky is too chromatic, right? So we'd be looking to desaturate that blue and find a more kind of specific blue that relates to the one we're looking at. So, you know, when it comes to desaturating blue, we'd look towards our sort of colors are more on the orange end of the chromatic spectrum. We look a little bit perhaps towards our earth colors like burnt sienna or umber, burnt umber, and just try and take out, you know, to hold a blue note, but to take out sort of the vibrancy of the pure hue so it can read as a value. And I think value-wise, you're perhaps hitting things a little bit too light too quickly, like the contrast. You know, you could connect to the contrast a little bit more specifically. I like your strokes, I like the character, and I like the kind of way you're putting down paint. But if you can just have a little bit more restraint and try and tune in a specific passage a little bit more thoroughly, I think you'll get a lot more from doing this. And it might just be that tuning in these three notes, it might not happen, right? But because it's a really difficult thing to do. But like if you continue to push towards that goal of tuning in three notes of color sort of specifically and beautifully, then it can lead to all sorts of understandings of painting. It's an amazing starting point. It's very, very powerful, create a lot of momentum in your understanding for looking at art. So that would be my priority, not to try and spread yourself out too quickly, just to really do your best to sort of tune in these notes, thinking about tonality perhaps over pure color, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Josh, may I just ask something? You talk about notes. What do you mean by notes?
Notes of color. So I think about the color kind of pertaining to, you know, the values predominantly, the temperature of the note. You know, I think about this sky as being sort of one broad note, right? And then I think about, let's say, the note of this sky in relation to the note of the drapery, right? That have a sort of different character, a different value, a different kind of level of chromaticity. Do you know what I mean? I sort of try and relate to them as one musical note in relation to another musical note, if that makes sense at all. But instead of music, we've got color and drawing to contend with. Does that help?
Okay, so note is a very general word, it isn't?
Yeah, I'm using it as
a
metaphor, really.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
No problem.
Josh, I uploaded it.
Okay, thank you. Let's just have a look at Gautier's work. Okay, lovely. All right, so first things first is that we want to try and see the abstraction within this piece, right? And obviously it's a portrait of a woman and it's a portrait of drapery, but we want to sort of begin with a strong squint and see this piece of work, this painting, in a series of spots, of notes, you know, of color and tone. And when I squint, right? I don't really see you see a portrait here, right? And my initial squint, I don't see that portrait at all. It disappears. And what I see is a broad kind of dark, right? That starts all here and continues and connects all the way down to this passage of drapery, all the way down to here, all the way through here, and finishes, you know, in the corner of this composition, or arguably, you know, I could follow sort of in another direction, right? I see big passages of light and dark, right? I think right now you've kind of interpreted it in quite a literal fashion, right? You're drawing a little bit more from your idea of what you're looking at as opposed to the experience of what you're looking at. And so to break through that, right, what I would strongly suggest is, first thing is I would consider this figure within her, you know, the place that this form has within the rectangle, right, initially, and then I would squint. I'd forget that I'm looking at a figure, a portrait drapery. I'd just try and see this composition in terms of big spots, big notes of color or big notes of tone and value, right? I'd try and see the big note that's on this portrait and how it connects to the background, right? And how these notes of dark group together to illuminate these gorgeous and very distinct passages of light that fall upon the edges of these drapes. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
Thank
squint. So lose the features, because when everything that you see that you don't see when you squint, you can lose into this world of tone. The other thing I'd advise you to look at a little bit more carefully is the specific angles of this form, right? Imagine that you've got a box of matches, right? And your angles pertain to sort of like the second hand of a clock, right? Think about the very sort of specific pitch that angle would take, right, in relation to the clock face. And then look perhaps in two distances. Look at the distance of this matchstick in relation to the distance of the big matchstick that encapsulates the thrust of the drapery here. This thrust in relation to that thrust. Does that make any sense?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I got it.
No problem. Awesome.
Thank you.
No worries. And guys, the guys that are new, especially, I'd encourage you to look at the other work as well, the other work in the group. It would be really helpful. All right, Stephanie, let's take a look. Beautiful courbet. Okay, so I think, like I've said a few times in these sessions, is that when it comes to transcription, is you can see so much of a transcription within a split second, right? And that often makes my job critiquing so much easier. And also, it's really helped me with my own painting, is that when I look at your work for a second, I'm completely detached from it, right? I'm not invested in the process in the same way as you are on a personal level, right? I can see that this note has so much more air in it. It's so much, so it's lighter in value and more desaturated. And I don't really think beyond that, right? I react to an initial problem and I do my best to tune it in. And as soon as I've fixed one problem, I will realize where I need to change the next thing. And there's not too much. It's such a beautiful painting to have chosen, by the way, but there's not so much to think of it sort of beyond that, right? It's just don't allow color to become too much of a sort of cerebral process. It's a very sensual process. We just react. We've got to react, and I think that's what sort of vibe I was getting at as well. You've got to get there as quickly as possible and get into your sort of feelings. And I believe that we react to color in a very emotional way. And so just hit it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And please send me this courbet. Where did you find it?
I don't know. I was spending a lot of time looking for transcription stuff and saved it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Sam. Yeah, this is a challenging one. I love this painting. I've copied it and drawing a few times. An interesting one to transcribe. Cool. Well, I must say, you're mixing beautiful notes of color, and it's a beautiful interpretation. But I almost don't want to say this because I almost prefer your reinterpretation coloristically somewhat. But so you can keep within that kind of closely keyed sort of desaturated world. And I would say within that world, you can just sort of focus on drawing the world that you've already set up. But if we are looking at the kind of specific color world of Baltus, it is kind of more rich and saturated. But I actually think kind of reinterpreting this painting in the kind of close key that you've chosen is, probably, looking at Vaibhav's work has probably brought that out a little bit in all of us, is a nice idea. So yeah, I mean, it depends what you're after. But I would personally kind of stick somewhat, at least, to the key that you've got. I like it, and try within it to work some of this very specific geometry in, because, yeah, it's, we know that Baltus loves that world. Helpful?
Thanks.
No worries. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. It's funny that we look we begin to look at certain works, and you've been looking at Titian a lot recently, and you looked at that very kind of airy Courbet. And it's funny that, we catch sort of wind of these artists' sensibilities of their voice, and we begin to sort of play, we're playing Balthus through the eyes of Courbet. And I think that's that's quite an exciting and interesting thing for me anyway, from on the outside to observe. Be careful a little bit of the format of this painting. It's a slightly skinnier rectangle. It wouldn't be hard to change at this point.
Okay.
No worries. Eve, let's have a look. Okay, so you picked a painting that's kind of very dominated by close tonal values, right? Like coloristically, everything in this foreground is pretty desaturated, right? And in fact, remarkably so, and very closely keyed. And the beauty of that is that it allows this sky to read as the most beautiful and vibrant thing ever. It's like all the restraint that he showed within the foreground and middle ground of this painting has allowed this kind of firework of color fireworks of sort of beautiful color to exist within our sky, right? So he's kind of, Degas talks about this a lot, like allowing all of the sort of dead color within his painting to set the stage for the vibrant color. I think somebody asked him how the colors in his painting were so alive, and he said it's because of all of the dead color. So you can sort of, even though I wouldn't necessarily think dead color is a bit of an unfair way to interpret the color within this foreground, I think what he's referring to is desaturated color, or very, very sensitively tonally complex color. And then if you were to to paint the foreground with those ideas in mind, you could really hit something very vibrant in the sky. So does that helpful with that? I think organizing the value structure in that respect will allow you to engage with this painting a little bit more directly. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so the foreground needs to be much darker.
Yeah, so basically when I squint at that foreground, and it becomes like a sort of a dark silhouette of dark value in relation to a very simple kind of note in the sky, that kind of triangular spot, and then sort of almost two sort of triangular spots, right? So yeah, I would kind of almost initially simplify this spot, right, this note, into one aggregate note of color. Try and find a sort of average note for this big shape, and then look at that sort of big dark as a silhouette, as a dark silhouette in relation to this very vibrant blue of the sky. So we're really kind of simplifying this process into, turning this painting into two brushstrokes, basically. It's actually a really good one to have chosen, because it lends very well to sort of this simplicity of the ideas I was speaking about earlier, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I would try and simplify this painting into two spots and refine the shape of those two spots as carefully as possible. Really look at sort of the angles and boundaries of the spots. Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
My pleasure. All right. I'm going to have time for everybody today, so I'll just start with Abby. All right. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too happy about mine.
I haven't seen your interpretation yet, but that looks like a headache. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Not to mention all of like the gold qualities within it. Have a look. Okay, actually, it's a really good start. I think that the purity of these notes, they'll test you. You've got to learn to mix hue and value like that, the kind of pure hue. Sometimes it probably have to kind of buy quite specific pigments maybe to hit them exactly, but I think you could do pretty well with what you've got on your palette. Just a little under, like you have to. It's a little under the light right now, but the kind of general layout is actually really exciting. I'd keep going with this. I think you can.
Oh, that makes me feel better. Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, I think you could, I think you've kind of got the body of it down. I might consider like just giving a light scrape and then like hitting, hitting something a little more specific. So like try and key in. I mean, the color's so beautiful, right? Try and key in just a specific passage like this specific red. It will really actually help you with, keeping vibrant color, but somewhat desaturating it, right? You have to raise your game actually to sort of be able to get these specific hues. I'm not sure. I have a very specific kind of vermilion red that's really expensive that someone got me as a gift, and that could. I think I could hit that note with it, but I'm not sure with what I have on my palette. You could get pretty close. You get pretty close, but it's it's a good lesson in mixing. But I think what you've kind of laid in is kind of fun and exciting, and you can kind of explore it in a more indirect way. Like, I like the direction it's actually going. Even if you paint it slightly under the light, at least just do it consciously. So make sure you key everything in relation to what you've already got down there, and you could explore quite an interesting interpretation of these Sienese paintings. But yeah, it's a good start. I wouldn't feel down about it at all.
Okay, that makes it. Yeah, it's also hard because it's like I guess it's like egg tempera, and I don't know if I can get the quality.
Yeah, you can oil paint can achieve some pretty magnificent things. You get really close. You get really close. If you could get really close. It won't have the same surface quality, but coloristic you could get really close if you wanted.
Okay. Yeah. It's such a clever composition. I saw it yesterday and I was like really like kind of.
Yeah, they're incredible. They're just so exciting and so strange. Yeah, good, interesting start. It'd be interesting to see you explore some of these, possibly for the first few weeks of next term or even over the break. Yeah, you'll learn a lot from the journeys. But at some point, when you are transcribing them, to just really give the line a chance. I mean, it'll blow your mind. It's mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Trisha. Yeah, this is another one that lends very well to transcription, and that seems like a pretty good start. I think kind of similar to what I was saying to Eve is that these kind of Corrots, they lend so well to just a really big squint, right? It's like when you really squint, you realize, yes, there's all this variety in the foreground, all this variety, but everything kind of simplifies into like one. Into two notes, really, 2 or 3 notes, but pretty much, 2 notes, this big tree, the ground, this tree here in relation to the sky, and then a more kind of subtle note for the notes in the distance. I wouldn't, maybe, potentially even a 4th note for an even more subtle note in the distance. I would try and really simplify this painting into sort of as fewer variables as you possibly can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So don't want to like break, you don't want to break stuff down and fiddle with things too much, you want to try and establish that kind of simplicity and that orchestration of simplicity as soon as you possibly can. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting the tone right, because my tree is turning too light.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's.
I think when we spoke earlier about this idea of internalizing motifs, it's be able to sort of see them in those terms that helps you remember them, like 3 notes, right? Being able to interpret a painting into 3 notes, it makes it kind of palatable, it makes it digestible, and you're no longer seeing details on things in a literal way. You're no longer separating leaves and flowers. You're just seeing things in terms of kind of raw brush strokes, raw kind of compositionality. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nice one.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Oh, sorry, Gretel. Let's find you. Ali, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, quite a hard one.
Well, sorry.
Where's this image from?
Yeah, from I don't remember.
Okay. I feel like possibly the color slightly anyway, interesting. Might be slightly different to the original painting, but let's work with what we've got anyway. So, okay, it's a good start. A good start. I think that again, like nothing here. No, there's not the saturation and values of everything here can't compete with this. This note of sky is like he's the boss, and everything has to obey the boss in this painting, right? Everything has to be like way, like several steps underneath the boss for the boss to be able to be so impressive. You know, the contrast here doesn't compare to the contrast here. The values here, they don't compare to the values here. They're separate world. You need to separate them very, very carefully to allow him to stand out and to be glorious. That's what, you know, that's what this composition is about. It's about this moment of glory here and how we lead everything into that moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it looks like a good start, but it looks like you could be more conscious of that and just be careful, you know, be so careful in a moment like this because it's so delicate. The edges are soft, the contrast is low, nothing is too bright, there's not too much saturation. It's a calm. You've got to learn to mix those calm moments, tune into those calm moments of paint coming together. Make sense?
Yeah. I haven't been delicate at all. I know. Till now, but maybe now it's a moment I can.
Yeah. You've got to like, it's a combination of being delicate and rough at the same time. There's moments like what you're doing, you've got to get stuff on the paper, you've got to be a bit aggressive, and then you've got to be sensitive and tune things in. It's a to and fro, it's a give and take, and you'll find the sweet spot within inside yourself where you can do both at the same time. That's what you're looking for, right?
Thank you.
No worries. Right. Ali, how long do you need, Ali?
A bit longer. I'm struggling a bit. I don't want to put it up.
The session is technically over. But Ali,
okay.
you can send to me on the group chat and I'll have a look.
I'd rather, yeah.
I'll just
Can I just, yeah.
Well, go on, Ali.
Can I just ask you, is it okay? I just did a crop of a painting.
Yeah.
Then I thought, oh, is that all right? I've shut down.
It's okay if you're going to really focus on the drawing. I think, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's a little difficult. You know, it's not. You don't want to also just take crops, right? You want to. When you take a fragment or a crop, you really want to compose, right? It's not just a random. You don't want to just cut things off. This passage here feels like it's been a little kind of decapitated. You want to really, really sensitively kind of framing your compositions, especially like when you're out in the landscape and doing still life. You want to spend time just like contemplating how, the form fits within your rectangle. Like it takes some moment to find the right crops. It's not that this crop can't work. It might work in your mind's eye, but I would just say really say is this the crop I'm going for? Is this an exciting composition? Is this an exciting marriage of spots and shapes? Like really, question that. Okay.
Yeah, great. Because I really got sucked into the rock melon color, and you're right. I haven't realized it's not. It does look chopped off.
Yeah, a little bit in terms of thought. I mean, they are. I mean, not to say that there isn't some really beautiful exploration to do coloristically between the meeting of these spots, because they're charming and very, very beautiful. So like it could be a coloristic exercise as well without, so there is room for that, just to take the pure color and look at that. I can see the allure. Yeah, absolutely. Be careful when you zoom in too far into some of these paintings, they become overly pixelated. Can be a little bit, it's a touch over pixelated. So just before we stop, I just give everybody the chance to have a little look at the Saturday Padlet, just to get you a sense. This is the end of the Saturday term. Just gives you a sense of how a full term's worth of Padlet would develop. Hopefully just be an interesting thing for you guys to see. Wait for it to load. So everybody has their individual section. The North London group, we have very high standards. We all work very hard, so everybody has an individual nickname just to keep things light and funny over the course of the term, so we can have a bit of levity when we get harsh crits and are working really hard and struggling. So yeah, everybody has an individual section. You upload the original image, you upload your progress images. This is Stephanie's section, the mosquito swatter from this term. Also we've been doing some junk pile. We probably will do some junk pile this term as well, which I will explain later in the term. We didn't have time to fit that into the introductory session today. However, if you do look on our YouTube, we have got a lecture that incorporates a lot of explanation about what a junk pile setup is and some beautiful examples of junk pile painting. So just giving you a little insight into some of the work done over the course of last term. Last term was a combination of drawing and painting. Next term will be specifically a painting course. However, if anybody wants to work on their drawing foundation, especially new students, I'm never going to say no to somebody wanting to draw. I prioritize drawing over painting, to be perfectly honest, in my own thought process. Some of Camilla's work from this term. So, we try and fit in 2 or 3 crits per session. And then if you join our immersive program, every Monday, we have a Monday group critique that's open to all immersive students. And there's a few other things. We do there's a lot of activity, a lot of action within our group chat, within the North London group chat on WhatsApp. It's a pretty vibrant, exciting community of people doing all sorts of beautiful things in paint and visiting all sorts of exhibits all around the world. So we've got we're pretty lucky to have a wonderful group of artists involved in the school. I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight into our Saturday Padlet. If anyone wants the link and would like to just spend a bit of time outside of this session having a look what everyone's been up to, you'd be more than welcome. I'll send that to you when the session's finished. But that's this term's introductory session over for today. I just want to thank those who are new to the group for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to meet some of you. You can email me, WhatsApp me, Instagram me if you have any questions about next term. All the information is on our website, which is northlondongroup.co.uk. I taught a life drawing session last night till quite late, so I'm going to just go and relax for a bit and possibly go to the studio, but I hope everyone else has a lovely Sunday. And if you have any questions, if anyone has a quick question now, please shoot away. Otherwise, just feel free to send me an email and I'll get back to you pretty soon.
Just one thing, Joshua. How do we join the group chat? I will be adding all the new students to the group chat pretty soon, before the beginning of next term. So and I will make proper introductions. We'll be up to probably 60 odd students in the group chat by the time this next term starts. So it's a great community, and there's opportunities to share your examples from your sketchbook every Sunday. I do a lot of critique in the group chat, a lot of voice notes, just talking about painting all year round. So it's a fun place, and hopefully you guys will get a lot out of it. Anyway, have a lovely weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anyone be kind enough, I will take a traditional introductory session screenshot of everybody. So if everyone be kind enough to turn their cameras on and just give a little wave, I'll make a little post about it. Waiting for you, Stephanie, if you do it. All right. Oh, there you go. Nice one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just if you do, we have got some other all the previous introductory sessions that we've had as a group on our YouTube channel, and also some incredible artist talks. And I will be possibly uploading some extra material there over the course of the next few months. So worth checking out. All right, ciao. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be on there later today as well. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.